Press the side button. So. Welcome.
Second.
Hard to get.
Second.
Which is press.
Okay. Let's call the Town Village Commission meeting to order. It is August 10th, 2020. The next business meeting will be on Tuesday, August 31st, 2021, at noon in this room here on street second floor. Next hearing will be Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 at 4 p.m. as well. We will now swear in staff. Will you state your name for the record?
Jacqueline Raymond, Assistant Historic Preservation Officer.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability. This happened.
I did.
Okay, great. Thank you. Introduction of commissioners and president. Let's start at that end. This record.
Lauren McNair. H. Schmalin. Michael Smith.
Jason Subi. Right. Do we have a public forum?
Don't believe we do. We just have a public comment for the individual application.
Okay, that's it. So let's move to staff approvals. We have those starting. I have a motion for staff approvals. So moved. Second.
Second.
Great. David? Sorry. Yeah, that's right. That's what we have. I keep forgetting that we're in person. I guess we don't necessarily have to. But let's just do it for old time's sake. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's in carries unanimously. I'll go through for abstentions now. 178 Spruce Avenue. That's my That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so one abstention. I know. 139 East First. Not sure which one that. 1016 Summit. 1056 Inlet. 933 Inlet. 178 East First. Yeah. Sure. Maybe your dollars. See, same ones over.
Well, there were two different ones. Until the one sort of school.
Okay, so 933 are in the wrap, another one, 78. Okay, another one, 35 East Road. And then 250 to 254, I have to abstain from that. Okay, so I think that covers the staff. We have all the abstentions in there you need. So going back to the top of the agenda, this is time for the further hearing today, which looks like it's number 2, ID 21.07, correct?
Stop with the should
I guess we should. That's good.
So
This sounds
such an exciting.
I know, why? It just throws me all off. Okay, can we have a motion for approval of the minutes from July 13th?
Okay.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, now we're officially hearing David.
Yep.
So now we're on number 2, turn over to staff.
This is for the right of way at 4th and High Street. The proposed work is to install a permanent sidewalk artwork on the stone wall, outside of stone wall Columbus. The proposed artwork would be a minimum of 4 feet away from all pedestrian curb ramps and would be roughly 23 feet wide by 120 feet long. First, this is the documentation. The installation would use slip-resistant thermoplastic, also for the submitted documentation. So the commissioners at the business meeting expressed concern over the proposed painting of the building. And staff would know that once the building has been painted, it is very difficult to remove the paint without harming the material beneath it. So staff recommends approval of application ID 21 08 007 at the right of way of 4th and High Street, with the condition that any unpainted brick is to be left unpainted. And the basis for the staff recommendation is the shoreline design guidelines for murals on page 3.26, as well as the standards of alteration, specifically numbers 2 and 5.
Okay. Hello. Take you sworn in.
Yeah.
State your name and rank.
Caitlin Dunn.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony, best truth, and you just have.
I do.
Okay, great. So let's hear a little bit of your thoughts.
I think you did a great job summarizing it. We are working with Stonewall to celebrate their 40th anniversary, and we are doing a thermoplastic on the sidewalk. And in talking with Kimberly, I know that's kind of a weird jurisdiction with you, the right of way and the sidewalk, but we just wanted to come forth with a formal approval and get any notes or comments from the Italian Village Commission. So the brick piece that you mentioned in the business meeting, to be completely candid with you, I felt that was new brick from when they redid the building, but it's not, it's old brick. So I think I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on either a thermoplastic that would be on that brick, or, and I know this was in the original rendering where they came to IVC for the initial drawings, if we affixed in the mortar something that we could then allow muralists to paint on. My only concern with the thermoplastic is that we really want the artists to be able to paint something, and they'll be working with the thermoplastic contractor to design whatever they come up with to then adhere to the sidewalk. But I think given the call for artists and engaging the community and finding an artist for this project, we do want them to have the ability to actually physically paint something. So that's the only reason I bring up something that may be affixed to the building, similar to what we did on the Victorian Village side on Bakersfield, of just allowing a muralist to paint on wood and then us affixing that to the building. Just curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments.
Absolutely.
One, totally opposed to the painting of the building that was determined, that was contributing to the architecture of this story about the evolution of High Street. So you turn it into a yellow mural and make a window up there as well is just wrong all the way around. The second concern I have about is the material thermoplastic. We've seen it on murals that the short do put up with sometimes as soon as 4 months, sometimes 6 months, it starts peeling off, it starts deteriorating. And we've never done it on sidewalks before. So imagine we're going to go through a winter, and the little snowplow is going to come and start digging up the plastic and it's going to be shredded. I will request that my fellow commissioners join me on this and put a condition that if we see deterioration in the sidewalk pieces, it must be totally removed. It's not going to stay for whatever duration and be shredded or right. So that's going to be a condition if I vote for this petition. The other thing I want to go back to is I remember the original Sampson plans, and the window section was talked about being a potential area for changing graphics. And I'm in favor of you, or would like to ask you to, perhaps if we go past this evening, we go back and talk about filling those spaces in with detachable banners, pieces that can be painted on and put in to the window setting, window frame. That way.
On the brick?
No.
On
this, it was on the second section.
Okay.
And the third one with theoretically the patio is.
Okay, gotcha.
Back there. Okay. Not just stuck on this corner, this odd intersection of color at a corner and that type of thing. And so summing this up, don't change the building, the original historic piece of the building. Sidewalk has to have a condition that if there's any deterioration, it will be removed totally. And then consider putting the graphics on new construction area and areas where it would be easy to put brackets or mounts and allow you more flexibility. I'm all in favor of stone wall, telling stories and showing things. So please understand I'm not opposed to that. It's where you're talking about doing it, what materials you're using, how can we maybe consider a better location?
I think David did a beautiful job of summing that up and making really great points. I'll say proposing. So I have nothing to add to what David said. I will reiterate and agree with his comment about not being opposed to artwork. It's just how it gets there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, agree with them as well about, especially the wear and tear that happened on these graphs. This has been an application we haven't seen yet. So. I haven't.
I'd say if you just Google, it's really a maintenance plan. There was discussion about touch up. So I think if you would agree to, like, basically whatever repair was necessary. I don't think it has to be totally taken out of its interior, as you fix it. And I don't know how it's going to work, but maybe you could like slice a piece out if you determine that, you know, whatever the curb edge is.
Yep.
Away after a year, because it really sounds like it's going to be somewhat distinct as far as the areas of color. So I think that would be for me, as long as you can compare it, basis to make sure that it holds on.
And if I can add one
Yeah,
comment
sure.
to that. So, yes, entirely. We are prepared to remove it or fix it if there's any deterioration. This thermoplastic is a little bit different than what we put up in the short north. It is city approved for, essentially what they use already in roads. But it's a little bit different so that they can design it and then put it on the sidewalk. We did propose two different installation methods for the sidewalk, paint versus this thermoplastic. And after we've weighed a lot of options, talked to the city a bit, and talked to the Columbus Art Commission, we think thermoplastic is definitely the way to go with this project. But if there is wear and tear, we are prepared to either fix it, or remove whatever is worn and torn. I will just ask a clarifying question because the next application I come with will hopefully be the actual art. So if that art is then proposed on the wall that you were talking about versus the brick, is that something that you could get behind? I know you haven't seen the art yet and you haven't seen the full application, but if we get an artist, if we get 3 artists to propose their murals for the gray piece, and then I come to you, if you like the art and you think it fits in the neighborhood, that wall will be acceptable. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you're saying stuff.
Gray, what you see is the gray section.
Right.
Doing it on the glass. Have you seen the glass canopy at the Columbus Museum, the entrance? With
Yes.
the pattern and that cast shadows and that type of thing? Think of maybe using the glass surface and allow light to still come in, like be transparent or translucent or playful with that too.
Yep.
Just to reiterate what I said earlier, just to clarify from my perspective, the opportunity that Rick has to be carefully considered throughout the quarter due to the fact that this isn't preserved for a portion of the building. That's the reason I think I joked saying that particular wall, it doesn't look like a remarkably unique wall. It is a contributing frontage. That's why I also wouldn't support this beginning. But the other ideas that you're trying to do sound great. The one thing I will say about knowing what your golf artist looks like, I know in the past they had tried some of those thermoplastic elements when they weren't complete, and they didn't last very well. By that I mean they tried to simulate bricks in the sidewalk,
Okay.
and they weren't solid pieces of thermoplastic. They were basically, it almost looked like almost like a thing when you pop soda cans out of. It was big holes with skinny little elements, and they did not hold up for a year or two. So I would encourage you to ask the city public service about that. And if any of your artists get very creative and want to do non-contiguous flat surfaces, they may not, that may not work out.
As of now, it will be contiguous. The only thing that, there might be some edges,
Yeah, again, just.
but there won't be.
Because anything that wasn't constrained and pretty, it just tended to get bad pretty fast. And again, that was 8, 9 years ago, so the technology may be a lot better too. It's- Didn't work out, but that'd be great. All for now. Okay, can I have a motion? David, sounded like you had some ideas.
Do we want to, you're coming back for another, so we can continue this. I think you've heard our thoughts about it.
Yes, if it's okay with you, I will come back with a final with the actual muralist design. And then hopefully, given that shift off of the brick, it will come to fruition later in the fall.
Great.
Cool.
So you would like a motion to, I would like.
Okay, sounds good. We have a second. Okay, all in favor of continuing? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion is continued. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right. We have a few that will move staff. So we're jumping up to number 5, which is 955 6th Street. So with that, I'm coming over to staff.
So this application is in response to a code violation. The work that has been done is the installation of a 6-foot horizontal wood fence in the side yard for the submitted documentation. The commission requested some additional photos of the fence and a site plan for where the fence was replaced. Additionally, commissioners requested to know how the fence would be finished. They noticed that the wood boards were various colors and were curious as to what the plans were to either paint or stain the fence. So staff recommends the fencing be vertical board following Italian Village guidelines for fences, which state that the privacy fences should be vertical boards, nailed side by side on parallel stringers, with the condition that the fence be stained or painted. The basis for the staff recommendation is the Italian Village guidelines for fences in a slope and enclosures, page 16. Noting that planning board and privacy fences should be vertical boards nailed side by side on parallel stringers. And that these fences are appropriate around rear yards only, as well as the standards for site improvements, specifically letters A and B.
Okay. Deborah, come here today.
Yep.
Yeah, come on. Should ask the first issue. All right, will you please raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Dr. Brian Goodhue.
And you promise to tell the truth, your testimony to rest for the best of your ability in your testimony this afternoon.
I do.
Words. Okay, so with that, let's hear your thoughts and then we'll talk about it.
So the fence was essentially just repaired and those new boards from the fence that was existing when I purchased the home. And there were some encroachment violations that were corrected through my attorney due to property line disputes. And those were adjusted with the help of a professional, very expensive survey, as well as a fencing company. The vertical versus horizontal niches of the boards, the horizontal boards were present prior to me moving in. So the fence was essentially repaired in the nature of the existing fence. The neighbors, whoever the builder was who built my home, the neighbors have an identical fence to mine. So it's the house to the right of that. And so I'm not sure the exact issue if the fence was essentially constructed identical to the existing fence that was there prior.
Stan, is that, I apologize for not remembering standard and it was like this business meeting. So you have a standard where all fences are supposed to be vertical.
It is in the Italian Village guidelines.
I think I will say.
Speaking personally, I know that horizontal fence was approved. As I live with it. So, and there are other examples in the village, and I think it's just a new style that I'm likely to see in the standards and the fact that it's already partially there. It seems that this is a better solution to continue. For this property will continue listing.
Yeah, I think think it's just worth noting, Jen, this might be a long discussion, but, I think over time, we're doing our best to try to apply the standards, but also respond to new innovations that come out. Because it's something there's a lot, science that used to not allow. And they definitely know resources. So, while I do appreciate that that is in the guidelines, this is probably one that is not something that at least we have typically adhered to. And I think the reason is because we found to justify that the new style is as appropriate as what the original intent is basically screen. So with that, I don't think for me the horizontal issue is I'm interested to outline different colors of the boards and if what the long-term process is for those not to look different.
Yeah, so basically the wood has to age, this is per the fencing company, for 1 year prior to being able to be stained.
Okay.
And so I used the existing boards that were present from the previous fence, which was broken. And then they added new boards, which have to basically age for a year. The whole entire fence though was serviced this year and pressure washed and professionally cleaned. So the intention is to continue that and then stain it after it's aged for 1 year.
Okay, thank you. Thoughts?
I think that I have seen enough horizontal fences in the village that I'm not opposed to that here. And I think my biggest concern was how you were going to treat the variation in color. You seem to have addressed that. And actually, I think I may have been the one who asked for a site plan just to understand the extent of the fence, which I don't understand from the photos supplied. But other than that,
Page 6.
uh,
Having a hard time finding them.
right,
There's a current project.
that's
there's
not-
the horizontal.
Yeah.
Why is that picture included?
That looks like very, very old photo. I don't know where that. The horizontal fence was installed at the time the builder built my home and I didn't own it at that time. And so I'm not sure. That was prior to the house being built.
Is your property where the tree is and no house exists?
Exactly.
This has no relationship to what we are trying to make this do. This doesn't show where your fence is. That's what focus on.
right.
Exactly, yeah. So what they did was when they built my house, the portion that abuts my back patio, they tore that down and then extended it into my property, or whoever owned the property at the time, and then built a horizontal fence there.
That's the sort of it because it's.
Exactly. So essentially all that was done was the fence that was there previously was just moved back to maintain a continuity of a seamless line of fencing as opposed to a jagged
That
fence.
fence gone today.
No, that fence is still there. And in fact, I reached out to all those, the people that own those condo buildings and tried to actually see if we could replace the fence, because essentially the fence needs to be replaced. But that condo, a stream of condos does not have a condo association. And so they can't seem to get an agreement to maintain or replace the fence. And I even offered to pay for a brand new fence that would essentially look exactly like the existing fence. So my goal is actually to make the community look better, not worse. And so they were not in response to any of my letters to actually have approval to do that. And in fact, 2 of the property owners denied access to their patio to even have a plan drawn up to have that done.
Okay, well, I think I'm getting it now. I went to Street View. It's basically kind of tucked up right next to that. More forward. Street View.
I don't have any issue with the horizontal fence. In a year, do you have any plans to paint or stain the fence when it's able to be?
Yeah, it was actually included with the repair price that I've already had done by the fencing company. They stain it after it's been aged for a year.
Okay, assuming that would be within Italian village guidelines as well, as far as color and.
The color would just be natural, like seal of the wood, once the color is all becomes consistent.
There we go. I think I'll illustrate what's going on here. Let's see. Okay, now seeing this, anybody have any other questions?
Where's all this gravel? And on page 3. So, that's not.
My yard has gravel beds, correct? Currently, yeah. And if you notice, that fence is gone too, that you're pointing at, that's the house behind mine, it's an Airbnb, and they just removed that fence.
Okay, any other questions or can we get a motion?
Well, since the work is already done, I'm sort of, what is the motion to do? The way you got here, to be honest with you, was you went ahead and did something that requires permanent involvement. So we're past that stage.
Just approval of the horizontal fence with a, as installed, plus the caveat about the standings match.
Yep. And we need that to get the code, to get the code. To remove that from the code.
Yes, we need approval and then compliance.
Motion to approve the horizontal fence, with the condition that will add a neutral finish to the added to the existing materials. Let's put a 1-year time frame.
I heard a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Motion carries. Did you leave this there? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6. All right, do we have the applicant here for 680 North High? All right, come on up, sir. And we'll have staff keep going while we'll be sworn in a second.
Okay, for 631, the work description is to remove and replace a sign with a sign identical in size and placement. The new sign will have upgraded materials and utilize the titanium wood trim. Letters would be 2 and 2.5 deep aluminum formed with a 1/2-inch thick translucent white milk push through for this new documentation. So staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the sign be externally illuminated only. Conditions be to remove the face of the sign for an exposed channel or neon look, or for the signage to have an externally illuminated design. And that is based on the Short Design Guidelines, including the general guidelines for pages 3.37 to 3.38, as well as the wall side guidelines for pages 3.38 to 3.39, and as well as the standards for alteration number 12.
Okay, let's get sworn in. I will state your name for the record, please.
Aaron Hart.
And you also the truth of your testimony and the best of your ability this afternoon. Okay, so over to you.
It's a like for like sign except for the materials. And I'd just like to give this.
Start with why are you replacing existing?
We installed the brass looking sign in Shaker Heights in Cleveland. It's a beautiful sign. We think it's an upgrade to the brand, which is the impetus for the installation.
It's the same size, same font.
Correct.
So it's basically just sort of changing their materials as a rebrand.
Correct.
Okay, what do we think?
We didn't give this to staff in the business because we have one condition that it's very specific outside. So,
Yeah, I don't have anything further. It's existing. We allowed it for, I have material kind of go around.
I'm good. I think just add a little thing, since they're replacing the new sign, that's part of what we're recommending. It's still being compliance, with the short North Design Guidelines. You know, it was existing, but now that it's being new, this is the opportunity to make sure that it's following the other signs in the compliance. comments?
Yeah, I'm totally sympathetic to that. I will say that this is a great new sign, and we did consider, we're still kind of working out this notion of what is a push through, and what's not. I think we've gone to this spot where we don't want a large plastic panels eliminated, sort of experimenting on the edges of what is and isn't needing within terms technically. So, I think in general, when we go with a very narrow profile and push throughs and larger flat sign, certainly a lot. This is just a different version of these individual standard letters. So I know we had quite a bit of discussion at the time.
We did.
At least then we determined that we felt it was appropriate. So I guess the question would be, but in the ensuing, I guess it's been what, 5 years? Geez, Home's Breast has been around 5 years.
It's been about 5 years, 5.5 years.
There's a lot of explanations that
last two elements as well. So the
Very
kids that does say something interesting about what's right. So it's still to see
as materials.
yeah, sure.
Anyone else have lots of differences of opinion? Everybody is welcome to those. Okay, having heard that, can I have a motion?
I'm sure how we can go about.
Yeah, this is a good one to do. And I basically just make a motion to approve based on the number of the application on the top. And then do it for this one, I think, as
Also, for this one, just clarify like the reasons why it's being approved, just so we have that on record here later, so we can be consistent.
yeah, so if you want to give it a shot, basically just make a motion to approve, just read that number off.
That address or that.
The case number.
Okay. So motion to approve the 21 of 11. With the, sorry, are we doing the condition with the internally? Or is it-
I think in this case, then this would be it's as approved, the staff is just asking you to know.
It's a realization of it.
Okay. Yeah, it be due to it being a revision to like place for place signage, as well as the thin profile of the push through insurance.
That's fine. And then if I could just request an amendment to that, if you would say that it was like for the recently installed sign that we had had discussion on.
Yeah.
Cool. So can I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That's it. Your first special motion.
You'll get more acquainted with this, but one of the criteria was that we're saying didn't get bigger because there is a limitation to how many square feet of signage you can have on store.
Okay.
And so that would be important to say that they didn't ask to make it 20% bigger and go out some.
Okay. Thanks.
And then staff will tell us if we do something crazy. So really, just go for it. And they'll double check. All right, with that, number 7. 1162. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
We all sidetracked in our own world over here. 1162 Summit, do we have the application for that? Okay, come on up, sir. And then if staff can do the staff report, we'll be sworn in just a moment.
Okay, the 11627 Seventh Street, the proposed work is that windows on the outer side have already been moved due to damage. That would like to replace the existing windows on the house with double hung wood star windows per submitted documentation. So the commissioners at the business meeting requested clarification regarding what windows, or what window is being used, and now that has been clarified for the star window. The commission noted that both the aluminum clad and wood windows were included in the brochure. You want to confirm which one is being proposed. Photographs of all elevations were requested by the commissioners and supplied by the applicant. HPO staff has requested a physical example of the window be brought, as it's not just materiality that needs to be looked at, but as well as the width, depth, and style of rails. As in pertaining to if there is enough depth at the median rails to create the shadow, and noting that the windows should have butt joints rather than miter joints, and what the options for the buttons are, as they should be simulated divided light and not just grids between the glass. It's also Noting that repair of any historic windows will enable windows to function and increase efficiency as more windows can additionally be added for increased efficiency. So staff recommends that the proposed windows be considered as a test case with 6/1 simulated divided light at the front and 1/1 windows at the side and rear elevations to match the existing windows. And that was based on the Italian Village Historic Guidelines for windows, pages 37 to 39, as well as the standards for alteration, numbers 2, 5, and 6.
Okay, sir, your thoughts?
So I like, do you guys have any questions on them or like?
I'm sure we will.
Okay.
If you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be the same, like from the front one's the only one with a design in the top, so it's gonna be the same design, same color inside and out, and then there's gonna be 1-for-1 replacements. They're the fully wood, no aluminum clad. And they're just double hung, and then some of the windows are just broken, and some of the I think the sashes or whatever the ropes inside of them are called, they're broken, so a lot of them like don't stay open at all. And then the two on the side right here, they were broken into, so those are just boarded up.
This is the last house.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, let's go down to who's got question.
Or what star windows are?
They are not on the approved list, so that's part of why we're recommending this a test case and why we really would like to see, the window be brought in so that the commission can evaluate whether they're appropriate.
I don't take any issue with it, but like staff said, I think seeing it in person or at least kind of understanding how the simulated divided lights would work like that.
Yeah. I can try. I asked them and they said they didn't have a sample available for me to bring in. But I can call again and see if they have something.
Would specs work for the commission? Like would Windows specs work to understand like?
Could, I mean, a lot, typically for adding windows. But
And bring in,
let's see it, but.
so that we can see dimensionality of it. It's hard to determine that from section, you always see to get that. I'm surprised they don't have something. What we could do is if we understand that these need to be replaced, maybe ask one person to be staff. It's approval rather than waiting for full.
Yeah.
And 100%.
So you need a subcommittee.
Or another. She's.
No.
Page.
I guess with the, being brought in include some of the details of the trim of the window as well.
Yeah, yeah, so they're gonna, I talked to them and they'll mimic like the design and stuff and the trim pieces on them, so it'll look exactly the same.
As the existing.
Yeah, as the existing ones.
The clad.
Well, I thought is that the storm? Because the new windows are gonna be wood on wood, like wood on both sides, there's gonna be no clad on them.
Yeah, that's why I was curious just about like how that will impact the, I guess, new trim around the windows.
Yeah.
And if it'll differ far from what's existing there, but if that's part of the sample we see, it's just.
I think that was good. And I thought that you said that the windows were wood and aluminum clad, wood in the middle, aluminum clad.
The ones that I had chosen were just the
Just
wood,
wood.
yeah, just wood,
Okay.
the wood
Okay,
product from them.
I think it'll be interesting to see a sample of the window. I don't have a problem with it, and I, like Paige, am curious about the installation details. Because frankly, it looks, some of the existing installation details look a little funky.
Okay.
And if there's any way to improve on that, I think that would be, that would beneficial. Maybe not just from an aesthetic, but maybe from a maintenance perspective.
Application. Would you talk about, is it the, almost like 3 layers of trim? There's the lightest color, then there's the brown wood, then there's the, some turquoise or the bright blue. It's running around. It's like 3 different materials on this window, which is that what you're?
Yes.
I was trying to define funky.
Funky.
Yeah, they, so it's like the wood windows and then they did storm windows on it and the storm windows were red and then I think they painted like the middle pieces of the storm window to kind of match the window color is what it seemed like from, I just bought the house 2 months ago. And so that's just kind of what it seems like from my opinion, looking at them when I was out there.
Are you replacing the storm windows or keeping what's there?
All the storm windows are destroyed, so I was just gonna, I was gonna get rid of them.
Eliminates one, two.
Yeah,
Right, so
Yeah.
in that photo, it almost looks like the window was sized too small for the opening. So I think you might want to talk to your installers about how those details might work.
okay,
Given that they're wood windows next to vinyl or aluminum siding.
Does it make sense for us to talk about the next application?
I was just gonna mention that part of why it looks a little weird, I think it's because of the siding and sort of attached trim that modern siding has. You might find when you look at siding, you know, the shadow lines of the general trim.
Yeah, so why don't we, Steph, do you have a report for an E, which is the same house?
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Sparnet. So for number 8 on the agenda, IB-21-08-013. So for this one, the front of the house was recently hit by a car, so the applicant is proposing to replace the front door, the front railing with wood in similar style and paint color. Replace the existing front vinyl siding or possibly replace all of the vinyl on the home to paint the home and replace the landscaping to match existing prior to the damage that was received. So step analysis, the commissioners at the business meeting were not supportive of replacing vinyl with vinyl. They requested that the test area be uncovered, knowing that if asbestos siding was under the vinyl, to be careful. The commission was willing to review the restoration of the asbestos siding since that siding is considered historic. According to the property inspector, behind the vinyl, so this is what the property inspector told the applicant, behind the vinyl, you have fan-fold insulation. Behind that, you have cardboard with brick pattern asphalt material, which I believe is probably a soul brick. Behind that is nothing. And they know that they just ripped some of that same material off another house to bring close to this one. That it is not asbestos and it is mostly insul brick. So HBO staff has requested some additional photographs, I believe some, including those shown on the screen are being shown. So the staff recommendation is to replace replace the existing siding with either new wood or smooth cementitious siding to match the historic siding dimensions based on surviving siding and shadow trim lines. And that basis is, and that recommendation is based on the standards for alteration, specifically numbers 5 and 6 and 11.
Sounds good. So what are your thoughts on all of that? Door?
so I'm fine with whatever, I would rather get rid of the vinyl siding, so right now insurance is only covering ripping out the front facade of vinyl and replacing with vinyl. So I just need like an official decision from the commission, but yeah, I just need an official decision with what material needs to be used, and it needs to be the whole house and whole garage rewrapped. And then just a color for it, and that they'll cover it.
Fair enough.
The garage is detached.
Yes, yeah.
So be able to talk to you about the house, right? Fully one material is a historic contributing house, we believe. So that would need one material, in the entire house, on false front, materials, I'm sorry for the insurance company. I'd like to see, you seem to be doing the right thing to this house and So my recommendation would be that it would have to be, the entire house would have to be reroute, not just the front facade.
That would be to the recommendation of staff, which was either wood, or cementatious wood, which is basically a version of hardy plank, because they have to do that.
Yep.
But staff could help you with those approved siding kinds or actual.
Okay.
And I think then as part of that, what we're interested in, I think, staff, if you're okay with it, you could either have the ability to improve the way that the trim works, or that could be part of that. It's one person subcommittee that looks at the window to talk to you about how the actual trim approval would go, because that would be different, obviously, profile to get this crazy mix of materials on.
All right.
That works for you. And let's talk about the door and the.
Yep.
So explain to me what's going on with the door?
So the door, like the frame was shifted,
Oh.
and I don't like that door anyways, so they said insurance would cover replacing it, so I'd rather get like I think I included one in there, that I think was like 3/4 glass wood door, or whatever doors approved by the committee.
Yeah. What does the commission think on the door?
I think more in keeping with the building would be one that has a smaller amount of glass, but very similar to that. It's just the proportions are a little different, but I certainly wouldn't be opposed. This is so much better than the thick stained glass wood that was not ever approved, but was special. This would be an improvement, and so I'm in favor if this is one you choose. We might say to you, you might look at the other improved, which typically doesn't have that much glass.
Okay.
It's your call on that. We're in favor of switching out what is there.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just agreeing.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk.
So, do you have plans to replace the rail?
Yeah, so I was either gonna replace the rail with it was a wrought iron railing, so either replace it with that again or replace it with like a wood railing that matches whatever trim color of the house is approved.
Um, okay, so it really came, you had two sides to the rail.
Yeah, it was like an L.
Okay. If it's real wrought iron, I think I would be okay with that.
Okay.
It would be nice to see what you're wanting to, to replace this with, just to, kind of get a feel for that. But I would be okay with wrought iron.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, if it's kind of like what you're talking about, it's an easy approval, but if it's something different, like, wood or different materiality, seeing drawings or what that would be.
Yep.
Thoughts on railing the door?
I agree with the commissioners as far as if it's like for like, obviously, pre-approved. I think if it's anything else, we need to see the balusters and what that might look like.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm gonna try and sum this up, just so we can keep moving. It sounds like we're going to have a motion on number 7 that is going to discuss these windows as potential test case based on the subcommittee viewing those windows. Is everybody kind of on the run, right? Anybody that may be an architect, if you have any interest in? Okay, sounds good. We're volunteers. So can I have a motion then on that number 7?
So moved.
Okay, and I have a second.
Second.
Staff, do you have everything you need for that motion?
Yes, I think it's just test case, subcommittee with broken.
Great, okay, so this is just for the windows. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, unanimous on that one. Now let's move on to number 8. So what I'm hearing is you're going to replace the front door with a door that is one of the approved the recommendations in the guidelines that staff can give final say on. That we're going to have a front railing that will either be similar in style that will be approved by staff, or you'll come back with a different set of plans if it ends up.
Let's look at the motion, including the word wrought iron fence.
Yes.
What's up there now is wood, similar style. No, we wanted.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're gonna come back with a wrought iron railing that is subject to the approval of staff, or you'll have to come back if it's a wood approach, that you will replace the siding of the entire house with staff approved wood or cementatious wood siding, and get the final approval of the profile of the window trim by staff as well. And then the other ones are just painting the house, and that's
His colors incorporated, so let's say
it's fine.
if something.
And then landscaping to match existing. Okay,
Do we want to call out the sign from the trip for the final details of the signing reveal dimensions to be submitted to staff?
yes, absolutely.
I think the difference is which of the materials he decides to use as a siding, which maybe we ought to say that we would want him to submit the corner trims and window trims. That would not have to come back to here. That could be approved at the same time. Sample windows look at. So
So
probably do it together.
those items with all my items, is that your motion?
Yep.
Correct, that's great. So staff, oh, I'm sorry, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, great, Lauren's a second. Staff, do you have everything you need in that motion?
Can you just repeat it one more time? I want to make sure I got everything. You want to say profile window trim and corner trim to be submitted to staff, or do you want that to go to subcommittee?
Yeah, I think staff can do all of this unless you're not comfortable.
No, that sounds okay.
Sounds great. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions. Okay, motion carries. All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
We'll be in contact with Jack.
All right, thank you.
All right. Staff, a second, keep typing. Let's see. Do we have the applicant for 1140 Summit Street? No applicant yet for 1140 Summit. Okay. Do we have the applicant for 1038 North High? Come on. It is my team, so I'll make it an appearance. All right. All right. Good. Let's get sworn in while staff's getting things pulled back together. You will raise your right hand and state your name for the record.
William Sabora.
And you promise to tell the truth and the best of your ability.
Yes.
Okay. So staff, take it away.
Okay, so 1038 North High. This application is also the result of the code violation for work already completed. The applicant or the work involved includes painting a 40 by 15-foot mural on the side of the fireproof building facing north per the submitted documentation. That is noted that the mural is to remain for a year and then replaced with another mural. And that future mural work to be done will be done in cooperation with the building owners and the Italian Village Commission. So the commissioners at the business meeting wanted confirmation if the area was previously painted or concrete, and noted that they want to be cautious with murals going up and competing with the short North Arts murals. The area of work does appear to have been previously painted per Google Street Views. So staff recommends approval of the application with any clarifications to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. And that recommendation, the space that is generally consistent with these standards for alteration, the short North design guidelines, and Italian Village guidelines.
Sure. Thoughts?
Yeah, I guess this is the last stop on the mural apology tour. The well-intentioned manager had gone on a beautification project, and I didn't realize they were going to be so ambitious with this. Luckily the portion of the wall that was painted had been previously white. It had been white for a very, very long time, decades, back to when that was a used car lot back in the 70s, 80s, 90s or so. So they just want to make it look better. It kind of caught me by surprise, but we worked it out with the fireproof owners. They wanted to make sure that this was a mutual effort going forward, that if they wanted to replace it, if it got dilapidated, that they had obviously say in it, because it's frankly their building. we just get to stare at it. So, yeah, I don't think it'll be replaced after a year unless it needs to be for whatever reason, or if we mutually decide between us, the building owner, and you guys, of course, that we'd like to replace it with something different. So that's
Yeah, that's, I mean, the big thing for me is that it was already white. So, just figure out the process and move forward. So, other thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Are we done with the telephone pole with the flat screen?
That's the next one.
My opinion, I'm probably going to say no. I'm going to say that I think it should come down and not be in competition with something in the short north that's already managed, it's curated, it has different themes, and then all of a sudden this thing pops up that wasn't part of it. It seems like it might be contradictory to the program that we have approved and worked on both sides of the street. So what I'm missing is back to the old days when you used to project on that wall. And that was entertaining, and that added activity, and that did something entirely different. I think we're very clear that we're not going to let what's being proposed happen with screens. So wouldn't it be better to have the white wall to encourage going back and showing projecting movies, which doesn't require for us again as a design project and all those. I'm just one voice, but I need to say what I feel strongly about. I think this is contradictory to the mural program that's already established in the short run.
Okay, let's have a motion on this one, and we'll get into the other one. So maybe make a motion on this application.
I'll move to approve, application ID -21 -08 -15, to keep the 40/15 mural beside the park.
And do you mind adding a note that this wasn't previously painted? We're not encouraging new painting.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll just because I know that BBM is here. Lauren,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
David,
No,
and I'll call yes. So okay, you're set up, mural. So let's talk about the next one. I'll let staff talk about that first.
So for 1030 North High Street, this one application is proposing to add an awning on the interior courtyard building and to construct a central TV stand for the submitted documentation. So commissioners at the business meeting noted that the awnings should have open ends following the short north design guidelines. And the commissioners were not supportive of the proposed TVs per the previous precedent of them not approving TVs visible from the right of way. It was noted that if this was a way to display a changing menu, that there were other creative ways to show this that were not a television. So staff recommendation, this is a conceptual application, so the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future Italian Village Commission meeting. So no action is required. The basis for the staff recommendation is the standards for site improvements, letter A, and the standards for alteration, number 12, as well as the short north design guidelines for commercial patios and outdoor dining, seeing the most relevant on page 3.3.
Yep, so the tree, the TV tree, we just decided that that doesn't really look good in the way it's stated there. So we're totally fine just moving on from that. The awning, we'd still like to do an awning. So if we have to adjust that with just open sides and then resubmit, we're fine to do that. If the.
Let's talk about the awning. David, and you had some strong thoughts
yeah, I do. This whole project, when it started, was, I remember a great deal of discussion saying that this space would someday probably permanency. It would not be this permanently forever. What I see has happened, it looks like this black box has been either modified or things have been added to it, we wouldn't have approved that unit on top so visible and have a contrasting color. We get that one with the sticker on it. So if the awning's gonna take place, let's hike it up higher so it can conceal a lot of ugliness that is on that building. How about coming back and getting a white window, painted black, so that it at least disappears or blends in? It all just looks like a hodgepodge of junk that's ended up there.
Sure.
And this is your time to upgrade it.
Mhm.
The street is entirely different now from when this started.
Sure.
And it just, to me, doesn't fit appropriately to continue it for how many more years. So here's our chance. Let's make that awning do something, hide some of that, and also request that all the odd materials are unified in some way to improve weight.
I totally agree with David's comments. I don't think that the poles holding up the awnings are appropriate, but I do think that if you can, David says, hike it up to conceal some of that, the rooftop stuff, maybe it's cantilevered then somehow.
Sure.
Or, you know, tied back.
Mhm.
Then I think it would be okay, but it needs some work. I'm really glad you're taking away the TVs.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Other commissioners have no.
I think that Commissioner Cook had some really great ideas for how to make it better. So I appreciate his input.
Yeah, I think, people always kind of like got that sort of like industrial, it's whatever outdoor space they go now, which I think has been very successful for a long time. But I don't think you need to get rid of that. I'm wondering if there's a way, to incorporate the way, the chain works and those vertical stands, sort of make those the poles that instead of being separate from that are part of the awning.
Sure.
And maybe, maybe then you change the look of them. Right now, they're super industrial, but maybe they get painted black to match whatever's going on, or they're in dark.
Sure.
Almost like a gas pipe instead of
Yeah.
something else.
Right.
Just some way to make it,
It could be light elements. They could be ballards that have a light to it.
Sure.
You should throw some light into
Work
it
on it.
instead of then something. You have a chance to.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think this as it stands has never been our best foot forward. I've never been happy with the look of the trailer compared to the shipping container that was there before. I thought that was a little bit at least more unique than this trailer was. But after 6 years of whack-a-mole with everybody involved, it was just no longer an option.
I get it. I get it. I think it's kind of one of those things, like, if you're gonna, it either sort of is what it is and keep it how it is until, whatever future you decide to do something else. Or I think if you're gonna change it, then just give it a little more thought as to what that little mini structure and the entryway to it needs. Instead of just kind of putting another element that fits in with the old elements.
Right.
Don't the old things. So
Yeah.
I think it's just an opportunity to make it a little refresh on that side, just like you did on the other side.
Yep.
But I mean, don't get us wrong. It has been an activated space that was really a transformation for this short. We all understand that. I think it remains that way. And we've always kept it very well maintained, clean, super successful. That's something we want to continue. So just sort of a tweak to reconsider how that will integrate a little bit closer to sort of the bigger vision.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Would you like that emotion?
This is conceptual.
Okay, so we're just going to let it go. Okay. Good. So,
All right, so we don't need to do anything more on that one. You're all set. You're all, thanks for coming in.
Good. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Okay, moving on to, I think going back to this one, 1140 Summit. Anybody come in? I haven't seen anybody come in. Okay, we're gonna move on. We're going to 347 East. And I have to step out because I'm standing for this one. So somebody else has to take this.
Lauren, you want to do it?
They will need a lot of help.
You don't want to just say it. Just a notice for it, okay. First, we'll swear in, anybody who will be speaking this evening. If you raise your right hand, so tell us that you will tell the truth, the best of your abilities this evening.
I do.
Could we have you read the record, introduce your names?
Matt Canterbury. Dan Haynes.
Tony Rell.
And we'll ask staff to bring us up to date.
Okay, for 347 East Fifth Avenue. The proposed work involves the demolition of 3 buildings throughout sites 1, 2, and 3, as well as landscaping for sites 1, 2, and 3 for the submitted documentation. So the following is taken from unapproved July 13, 2021 Italian Village Commission meeting minutes. And commissioner comments were that the commissioners were supportive of the proposed landscape, and that the temporary chain link fence gives some of the commissioners concerns as chain link fences are not appropriate. The confirmation of screening these fences eased some concerns. Per the HPO staff request, a site visit for the 3 buildings proposed for demolition was organized. And then I'll get to that in a minute. So the site is listed as the former monitored motor car company on a 1922 Sandbar map, and as the Clark Brady Bolt Company and Clark Auto Equipment Company on the 1951 Sandbar map. The subject buildings all appear to have been constructed in the 1950s. So a site visit was conducted by staff on August 6th of this year. The buildings proposed for demolition have been altered over time and while not distinct individually, they do reflect the historic use of the site. The alterations that have taken place to the buildings reflect the changes in technology and use over time. There are surviving materials, including beams, machinery, and other building materials, which all serve as indicators of the site history and could be reused on site as part of our installations to make clear the history of the site. So on that note, staff recommends approval with the condition that the industrial materials be reused for art installations on the site to clearly reflect the site history and use of the property. Basis for staff recommendation are those building standards of demolition.
So would you like to speak to those?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time as always. Essentially, we walked with staff and concur with their ruling in terms of looking at some of the pieces of the current warehouse building and being able to reuse those. We've already had dialogue in terms of where on the site we may actually do that. We do intend, as previously mentioned, at a future date to bring back a full art plan. We are looking at a couple, 3, 4 potential installation areas for that of sculpture and or murals throughout the site. We've seen a couple proposed locations that have not been up for vote as of yet, but those will come forward. Regarding the landscape plan, we're from the ownership seat, we're ecstatic with the work that our team has done and feel that it is, within not only compliance with some of the zoning requests, but the Development Commission requests, and will be very well the landscape to finish off this component of the Italian Village northeast corner.
Could you go back just a minute? What were the car dealers name or what? That's when you sold the convention.
Absolutely. So on the Sandbar maps, on the 1922 version, the label for what the site was used for was called Former Monitored Motor Car Company. So I guess at the time it was right former. And then on the 1951 Sandbar map, there are 2 names. So there's the Clark Brady Bolt Company and the Clark Auto Equipment Company. I did take a look at some aerial imagery. It's on a website that has watermarks, unfortunately, so I don't have the materials. From the aerial imagery, I was able to make out at least 2 of the buildings that appeared on the 1957 aerials, but did not appear on the 1953 aerials. So that 1950s date seems to track, and those 2 buildings do not appear on the 1951 Sandboard. So further confirming that they were constructed in the 1950s. So just some extra background.
Reason I was asking, see, not only are you talking about maybe taking some of the architectural materials, but could you get your 2 different community buildings, name the party room or name the library or somehow use the names that maybe it's Edsel or It goes back and pulls whatever the brand of cars or something. Could you play with that and have some connection back to the historic application what was there? And this will give you a chance. So, Loso site, where did that come from, or what, how does that play into the history at all? Or
Well,
does
it truly does and doesn't, frankly. The architecture has been, you have to really sort of harken back to sort of an industrial piece, that this was an industrial site. So we tried to do that through the architecture to nod to that history. The name is, Luso is Italian for luxury. And essentially we wanted to keep something that was Italian to hint towards the Italian village. And then beyond that, our intent is to actually have what we see as two projects in one with their own branded names. And I actually really, really like the idea to look back to the historical pieces, to actually look at names within the club rooms in specific.
could be fun and
Yeah,
have imagery of some of the old cars.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
do something graphic with it.
Mhm.
I think our issue here tonight is to talk about whether discussions do either or different questions that we ask based on staff recommendations.
I have a question. Was it staff or anyone from the commission that watched the space? Was it both?
So it's just staff, and the commission was unable to make it out.
I had signed up for it and I didn't think this information that I needed to respond to, so we
So the recommendation was that was it any of the like superstructures of the building being saved, or was it truly the equipment? I guess I was unclear which portion staff recommended to be saved.
It is truly the equipment. This is a tricky one because the actual construction was previously approved before the demolition. But in looking at the different buildings, so individually, the buildings aren't themselves a unique structure, but together they do, relate what this history of the site was. They are a little bit later on the scene for this site, but the general industry of them, just their industrial use, we think has good potential to at least reuse the components from those, such as like a beam or things like that, that can be used to at least relate what the history of the site was. So we recognize that, over time, some of these buildings have been changed, some of the walls have been removed. And with steel added or partitions, the windows have been darkened because they weren't needed anymore, natural light, they were replaced over time. New light, things have been gutted, but in general, it still kind of gives that sense of what the site was used for.
Yeah, I appreciate the idea of not only just the equipment being taken onto the next phase of the project, but also some of those materials that you were talking about. There seems like a lot of kind of open plazas or potential for that to be utilized in these spaces.
Good.
No, I really appreciate your nod to this history of the site and the name, and your willingness to incorporate some of the elements that were found. So I'm fine with the direction this is going, the demolition and reuse.
I appreciate staff making the trip out to the project to really see what was there, and it makes me feel more comfortable approving demolition, especially if you're salvaging.
So based on that, why don't you make a motion to demolition? I encourage the applicant to the system materials can be properly integrated.
So are we also approving the landscaping as well?
That is requested tonight, but if you break it apart, that is certainly your call.
I think we've seen the landscape in previous times, so
I will move to approve IB-21-08-018 for the demolition of 3 buildings and the landscaping for sites 1, 2, and 3 for the submitted documentation with the condition that they reuse materials, that they take the materials from the historic site and reuse them in some capacity.
Let's say something like when appropriate or when reasonable, existing materials will be. That'd be a thing. Have a second.
Second.
All vote. All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Should be willing to send our real computer right back. When you
You
leave
did a
us.
great job, David. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You did a great job. Thank
We're,
you.
we're old vets, so we know exactly how this goes. I could have.
Might have taken a little longer.
It's all good. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. See you back.
Still missing one, correct? That we skipped over.
And we're just waiting on the applicant is.
Let's see.
16. No, 13.
No, that's 16. 15.
15.
So waiting for Kara. So what do you do for?
Just here to
Hang up.
talk about someone's project, yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good.
Just want to make sure you weren't working on a different project.
Okay.
So for the letter sent out for, in regards, I think it was the earlier application on the agenda, did everyone have a chance to read it through? Okay. Yes, please.
So that's, yeah, if it's not coming back. Correct?
Yes, so the applicant is not here yet. Hopefully they'll come here. I just want to check that the commission had a chance to read the public comments submitted in regard to an application for 1140 Summer Street, ID-21-0-0114. So it's-
Did you email it to us?
yes. So that came out in the general, with the agenda and the consent, since the word document. I can resend it as well for applicant. This shows maybe that's another chance for to see it as well. It was sent out yesterday, or I received it yesterday.
Is it the last item? Same. Okay.
Is it from this?
I believe it's from a nearby, a neighbor, a resident that was nearby.
It's like the
Subject property. Yeah. Since we're reading on some applicants, does anyone need to bring water, bathroom?
Yeah.
Let's do. Sure, okay, so we'll put
Good.
think, I know the subsequent applications, it's listed on the agenda, the likely not here until 5:30, so hopefully in a couple minutes with this.
First house that we talked about. This is brought up here.
Okay, we're ready to jump back in.
So,
Okay, so we are now for 15 conceptual application for 1020. So, while you're sitting, I'll get you sworn in. So will you raise your hand, state your name for the record?
Carrick Sherrill.
And you truth your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
I do.
Okay, so staff report.
okay, for 1021 Ave, this is a conceptual application. The proposed work is to construct a 4-story, 46-unit apartment building to demolish the existing garage and commercial building, which is currently a hookah shop. And the parking would be single level and access off of East Third Avenue. So the commissioners at the business meeting noted that they did not see the need for the density at the site. The commissioners were concerned about having an entrance/exit on East Third Avenue. The commission thought it was too close to forward and were concerned that they were given going with other parts of city approvals, specifically public service. The commission was also concerned about the curb cut with extra traffic controls that might be required, specifically if any additional lights would be required at that location. So the commissioners noted that the activation board is going in the right direction, but the density was a challenge. The commission could see that the building was a bit lower than durable slate and then stepped out into the neighborhood. So the staff recommendation, being that this is a setback location, is that the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at the future Italian Village Commission meeting. So action is required. And a general basis for staff recommendation are the standards for new construction, specifically like Spain, B, C, D, or all of it in new construction.
So, let's hear what's going on.
Hi. I don't have much to add beyond staff report. We have made improvements to the plan. We've reduced the density from previous applications. We've reduced the height from previous applications. We have made a concerted attempt to diminish the mass as we move forward along, move south along North 4th Street. I did a comparison of development densities that have been approved on the North 4th Street corridor. I can submit it, but it's all, the lowest density is 86 units per acre, which is Kramer Place. And the highest is Jeffrey Phase 5, which is actually 117 units per acre. Our project is coming in about 90 units an acre. So I think the development pattern of the North 4th corridor certainly supports the level of density. I understand that there's some challenges with regard to access to parking. So our general response to the access to parking was to split the parking. If you can go to that, the colored plan, the next one down, I think. Yeah, you'll see that there's actually two entrances. There's one off of Peru that serves 15 spaces or so. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. And then there's the access point off of 3rd that serves 30 spaces or so. I don't know if I have the numbers exactly right on those spaces. And also looking at that plan, you can see that our curb cut is proposed to be further away from the intersection from 4th and 3rd than the current curb cut, which you can see in that plan. So as much as we understand there are concerns about, the size of the building, I think we're doing the best we can to address those concerns. We haven't submitted this to preliminary site compliance to get comments back from city engineering staff as of yet, but that would certainly be the next step. I think the last time that we looked at this plan, there was in a full meeting, there was some mixed results about the method with which we were parking the site. Some folks in favor of being able to use the 3rd Street curb cut and others not. So that's about where we stand with the project. Obviously, the details of the architecture are really, they're there, but they're not fully developed. So I don't know if we need to spend too much time on that. We're definitely still talking about massing density and access to the site.
Okay, let's go through it. Let's start this one.
Let's go to the elevation. What I see is typically the following one. just a big wall, windows all the way across to the individuality, the variety of aerial view. You see that this was a neighborhood where houses, lower structures. I am still opposed to the height of this building. I'd like to see it come down, which would solve or help alleviate some of the issues with parking issue, but why do we do a whole line of all the same windows running all the way down? It was way too racist. I want to see also, I would prefer to see a project that is condos or to be purchased rather than more rentals to build the neighborhood, strengthen the neighborhood. This just looks like a project. Way too. Also, if you've driven forth recently, notice that the new construction we have approved, the Bud Dairy falls away as a landmark that used to be, or very, very much the most important building. It's going to get wiped out. The full line, but
I think well, I think it's too big. And I also think it's way too busy. It feels like there, maybe the design is trying too hard to break down the mass. And frankly, if the mass were smaller, maybe it wouldn't take that much effort to try to break it down. I think that other than that, I agree with David's comments thus far.
Yeah, going off of what they said, I think I appreciate the kind of the recessed portions that you're creating on the west facade, and how you're starting to like try to scale this down, in response to David's comment, those recesses and the projection on the west facade could be portrayed down to the ground level as well. And I think the balconies kind of take away from what those recessed areas were trying to do to create that different scale walking down the street. And I appreciate the kind of lower roof level near, since this is wrapping around those nearby residences, but I just wonder if those I think public terraces and like lounge areas looking over there, those existing residences will feel a little intrusive.
I hear you on the other densities that exist along Fourth Street, but I have to agree with the other commissioners that looking at, even looking at the third page that David alluded to, where you see a little elevation, it feels very large for that space. I hadn't even thought of the visual of the dairy, which so much work put into that project, and now it's kind of almost finished on Fourth Street with this project potentially. So I won't speak to the architecture. I think that you've heard that, but I also agree it's large.
So my thoughts kind of are the same thing I had at the meeting today. It's less about the mass, it's more about accessing the site. I know that you're further from the corner than that. That's that argument that's gonna hold on for me, since that was terrible, junky, suburban sites, and that's the reason we have a terrible location for the curb. Just like it, there was a gas station that looked like a gas station back there, so I think we gotta fix that. I think one of the problems is that there's a lot of evidence on the other side of the street that having those curb cuts pretty close to the corner has not been great. I think, all the things I really like about places like Seven Sun, the thing I really don't like is dodging cars coming in and out as I'm trying to get to the front door. Same thing from Fox and Snow. It's got a lot. They just put a bunch of tables out there. People don't really try that front section anymore. I was very much against that when we did some different approach or I think all that access and stuff like that. I think you could argue there's pros and cons, but I think in a site like this, the opportunity to really create great street frontage. So I don't know what the answer is to that. Maybe trying to solve a perfect problem. But I just feel that the quicker we can get that into a typical neighborhood scale of pedestrian access, the better we are. And the reason I'm really concerned, I think on your renderings, it looks pretty innocuous. If you look at the southern elevation, it's a closed garage door that's relatively small, doesn't seem like it's that burdensome. I just am worried because of what happened. Something where those two entries turn into those megalithic, like did, right in, right out, chop, bad news. It's just like, it's so bad. And I'm worried about what traffic controls will be put on there, if it's gonna be that close to the intersection, and what this will morph into in order to make it work physically. If it ended up being exactly like it looks here, I would love it, but I can live with it. But if it goes the direction I think it's gonna go, this is the best of a worst case scenario for me, and everything else is worse. I'm just like envisioning the terror of walking down that street and feeling like I do it again. So that's my thing. I don't know how to fix that. And if you reduce parking spaces by getting access purely from the alley is one way. I don't know how you maneuver those, but that's where I am. It's conceptual, so you're still working it through. I do appreciate the activation of the first floor. I think that your approach to having an office space in the front and having terrace on the top of the deck is a smart move. I think it does bring the scale down in that corner. Obviously not so much at the other end, we've got a building going on, but I see what you're trying to do there, and I think that there's some merit to that. For me, it's really about getting in and out there, operating that streetscape, and still creating those spaces. Yeah, so over to you for other questions or ideas before.
Actually, one more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thing to add, or just like to think about, when I'm looking at some of the renderings that you have versus the actual footprint, I noticed that it looks like you're thinking about putting trees and kind of landscaping in front, but when I look at the footprint, I don't know where that would fit in, like how much room you actually have there. So just, I think I would like to, I don't understand necessarily a process, but maybe to understand what idea you might have for landscaping to be included in that. Or just what direction.
It would be tree grate street trees is what would be shown there in the elevation.
I think let's make sure that that's possible. I don't know what next exam we're seeing, so I have to go deal with it. But it's important about that. Thinking as well to survive.
The project to the north that I may or may not be familiar with has street grades, yeah. Approved by Parks and Rec and traffic engineering.
That's good.
Yeah. And part of that, part of what's going on there is the city is taking right of way in order to maintain accessibility and to be able to accommodate street trees. So that's the idea. I mean, for both this project and the property to the north, this city took 4 feet of right of way. So.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll need to see that. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions you have for us today?
I don't think so. I don't have any other comments I think that I think that anyone is gonna struggle to develop anything on this site. You know, land is valued at the density that other land has been purchased for, and with this site being similar to all the current development pattern, you know, that's kind of setting the value of land and so
One question for you, just on that. What happened to those two spaces that are so big? Looks like they're kind of part of it.
for the surface spots for the single family homes.
One's inside the building, it's kind of got the dash line, yeah, right.
Oh, they would be stacked spaces for like a 2-bedroom.
Seems like it's stacked and it's blocked by 2 other cars. Seems tricky.
Yeah, you would access those two through, yep, yep,
Because that's all.
yep, yep. Okay,
Okay. That's a good one.
Street trees.
He's saying they're giving him. I mean, in addition, sorry.
right, there's the back of curb, I believe on both is about 10 feet from the face of the building. After the right of way take, yeah.
That's the conditional side. All right, thanks. Do you have anything else on your today?
I have old business for 243 West Third.
Maybe
Great.
jump ahead to all business.
So it looks like it's on page 4
Are we already starting in staff?
This is for 243 East Third Avenue. This application was previously reviewed and approved at the February 2021 Italian Village Commission hearing, with the caveat that the final scale of porch drawing was to be reviewed by the commission, and that was my business for the agenda. The scale front porch section has been submitted, and staff would also just like to point out, just for the commission's awareness, some design changes, including the railing on the 3rd floor instead of the parapet, which reflects the commission request at the February 2021 hearing. The window up the front porch and 2 second-floor windows on the east elevation have been made smaller. For the applicant, the reason being to coordinate with the stair, and a proposed window at the east elevation has been removed. And there is also some notes taken from the February 9th, 2021 Italian Village Commission meeting minutes, if you want to look over that. And that just reiterates what was approved, and that stipulation that revised drawings were to be submitted, and that scale drawn in the front porch was to be submitted.
Anything you want to add here?
I do not. I can just quickly go through the changes in more detail. If we look primarily at the east elevation on A201, which is the lower left, the second floor windows have been reduced in size, and there was a 3rd window in the middle that matched the window above that was eliminated. The stairs are there, and we ran into some riser problems.
What are your lentils in that material?
It's fiber cement. And then, as was said, the similar thing, on the north elevation, which is the bottom right, the window off of the porch was made smaller for the same purpose. The stair turns the corner there and starts to come up. So the landing is higher than what we originally had planned for the interior. On the west elevation, which is the top left, The approved drawings showed the screen face of the screened-in porch. And we, for the permit drawings, we show that there's an actual railing behind that screen. And then obviously it's also showing the door and the window that are in the wall behind it. So that was what was picked up in the COA review. You know, at most angles, the light is going to reflect off the screen and pretty much kind of not let you see that as well as you can in this drawing, but
See if,
Remember Ben was concerned about.
yeah, we call that out as galvanized steel. He was concerned about it being made out of wood and wrapped in brake metal. Yep. Yep.
No, I know it's not many. I don't think it's, the changes don't feel terribly significant to me.
I mean, that east elevation that has the most changes is fully buried, 4 feet away from the adjacent building. So, I mean, you're never going to perceive it from anywhere other than.
On the porch drawings, since that was the reason for being on the agenda, was the stipulation.
Did you have anything?
If you go back to the elevations, I'm saying changes, wish. Inside this railing was pulled back to sit there rather than making it fill. It seems very right there. Just pulling it back would not make it look so incredibly massive. Like, well, this is not to be that big. It's been what happened probably a couple of last years over there or something. Just, I don't like the way it comes to the edge, but we didn't talk about that before, so we've got to go on very well. But I frankly think it would have been better. Pull it back, even for the safety standpoint.
Gotcha. Okay, I have no further comments. Now any others? We have a motion.
Make a motion to approve. Changes.
Okay, since 20-. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Yeah, what's that?
I've been I know this is like not on the agenda. I've been struggling to figure out how to address the sidewalk from last month's conversation. We had a discussion about the material of the sidewalk that extended on 889 from the street right of way to the back. It was approved and it was constructed as approved. So like after the meeting, I drove by it and it was constructed. So I'm not sure if we can address that. Yeah. I apologize. Yeah, when we brought the little white building back in, some of the commissioners had some concerns about the surface of the sidewalk, but that's okay. I'll address it with either staff or resubmitted or whatever, but it existed as of when we were discussing it.
Wouldn't be able to have it on this agenda with the.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Which case are you here? 255 East, so for both of you are? Okay, great. Come on up. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, so. Get seated when you're sworn in. Trade your right hands. We'll state your name for the record,
Chelsea Lucan,
and if you will,
Emily Sullivan.
great, you will promise to tell the truth in your testimony, the best of your ability this afternoon.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
You see one more, which one?
This is 17, so 21-08-22. 1255. All right, so staff, your report.
Okay, so this is a conceptual application. The proposed work is to remove the existing rear stoop and replace with a new wood deck. To cover over the existing rear door and create a new opening for fresh doors in the kitchen area. And to remove the window in the second floor or to redo the existing bathroom. So the commissioners at this meeting stated that the decking should be low enough for no railing to require and very little separation from the ground. And also noted that they were not supportive of the removal or adding needs proposed. The applicant has submitted revised drawings and specs. Since this is a conceptual application, the staff recommendations of the commissioner should offer design feedback and utilized by the applicant. A further refine proposal for a review at a future time village commission meeting, so no action is required. The general basis for recommendations of the goals of this application are the standards for site improvements, specifically number A, as well as the standards for alteration, specifically numbers 1, 2, 5, 6, and 10.
Okay, sounds good. Over to both of you to tell us what's happening.
So I bought the house back in February and have decided to kind of do a pretty extensive internal and moderate external remodeling to it. I have taken the initial thoughts from the July meeting into consideration and changed some of the planning. The exterior in the back currently has a porch, but it's in very poor condition, so that would be removed and replaced with just stairs down to a patio paver. And then regarding the bathroom window, it's a pretty large window directly in the shower. I would like to remove it and just cover that opening with the same outside siding.
Let's start. Where should we begin? Choose. So it sounds like you're no longer proposing a raised deck.
Correct. It will just be the stairs to ground level.
That's fine. And just so you understand kind of what we're after. It's just like the classic large scale Conceptual style deck is something we haven't been for a long time. So if you did want to do something different, obviously I agree patio, or if you wanted to do a couple of didn't certainly consider that. So, but for now, we just roll it, leave the B back. What was that? Okay. So the other issues are really having to do with the windows. Is that correct, Steph?
Yes, so everything, the deck we have, covering over the rear door, and then creating new openings, and then also the removal of that bathroom window.
Who wants to start on this one? Right, Brooke.
I am not in favor of infilling the bathroom window conceptually. Are you changing the layout of the bathroom so that that window would actually prohibit you from redesigning the bathroom in some other layout?
No, we're not redoing the layout of the bathroom.
Okay. I think there are ways that you could treat that window to, offer more privacy. But I'm not in favor of that. And I I understand what you're doing in the kitchen. I do have a question about the viability of either the window, if that were to be approved, and in filling the door, the viability of that vinyl actually matching. um, Just from wear and age, that it could potentially be very hard to find or get a vinyl to match, and it would look very patched. And so I would suggest maybe if these infills are approved, that you consider another way to do that. I don't think it's just going to be a patch job. You're going to see the outline of the vinyl. Might need to go all the way across.
Yes.
But still, there could be that potential for a color mismatch in that. Are you, but as far as the rest of the exterior, it's mostly interior. You're keeping the roof. You're not doing the deck on the back, keeping the front porch as it is. Okay, so that's my comments with regard to the exterior.
Yeah, just to go off what we were saying, that infill is truly now only happening where the overhang was. And they're not.
The infill would be happening, yes, a little bit on the back where the roof was over the porch, and then just where the bathroom window pending approval on that.
Okay, but that's currently not in drawings, correct? The windows staying for these in drawings.
The proposed is at the bottom left would be showing without that bathroom window. And then in the rear, we would be keeping the door and window location, just swapping them out for a new product.
Yeah, I guess I thought the restroom window was the left elevation. Is that incorrect?
The bathroom window is in the top left.
Oh, I'm not
Sorry.
looking at these drawings. I have old drawings.
It has, yeah, there's somewhat previous, somewhere, just if you look on the, it's kind of dials, said previous. But anyway, back to IH.
Yeah, that's why I was just finding with these proposed drawings, it looks like you were attempting to keep the restroom window, and then just the infill will be happening at the overhang, the rear door. And then that window to the right of the rear door is infilled right now, but you want to fill it with new window, is that correct?
Correct. The current window is it's plastic filling a very rotten wood frame. So it would need it entirely removed.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure it was clear. I agree with the comments about the infill, making sure that can be consistent with the rest of the house. But other than that, conceptually.
So reviewing the packet. So to my understanding, I will ask this question. I feel like the rear elevation, you're replacing the door and the window, and you're making that window a double hung window. Is that what I'm looking at in the last 3 pages that have the?
It doesn't necessarily have to be double hung. I believe the items were just examples. We had several double hung window options.
I guess, what are your intentions with that window?
My intention, it would be a similar style.
Okay. Operable, or you want to keep it fixed?
Fixed, most likely.
Keep your calendar in the kitchen.
That will be replaced with a new counter.
Because that window.
Do you mean the current window here? Yes, so that window will remain. Yeah, the counter is being moved around in the new plans.
Uh, No, I think that Rob brings up a really good point about the sighting. The issues that present, everything else to add.
No, I'm sensitive to what Brooke has said about the, and the big window, not a big window. I lived in a house where the window was in the shower, deep as that still is, it's gonna collect water all the time, it's gonna be in the walls, and it's a real issue. So I'm sensitive to their long-term practicality. The other thing is, Jason just read street view. House that's next door to it on this elevation would essentially totally opaque your ability to see a significant change in that elevation, which would help me a little bit say that I would not be as opposed to it. I don't like bathrooms without lights in them, but I also think it's unfortunate they're not going to reconfigure the bathroom. You're going to have the water in the shower all the time. It's going to drip down wood and to dry while living. So I wouldn't wish that on you.
I appreciate your experience.
Just the one elevation, they do choose to do it. They could let that go because the house next door really blocks every elevation. That didn't work with the issue.
Yeah, I will say, I think there was just some legally confusion on your drawing, which is why we're all getting a little stuck. So, I apologize if I keep asking the same question that several others have asked for clarification. Because some of these say existing, it looks like the rear existing is actually the front. Or is it not?
No, that is the current rear existing.
Okay, so where is it?
I don't know if we have a frontal view of the drawing, because you weren't making any changes at this time.
Yeah, they are all labeled correctly. We did not include the front elevation because we're making no revisions to the front.
Gotcha, okay.
Sign elevations would help in the future, like the directional west or east.
Yes.
I think it's also helpful when we see existing versus proposed in close proximity to each other, just so we can compare it more easily instead of going back and forth and wasting time asking a bunch of questions.
Yes, the major one is the rear, where existing is on the lower and proposed is on the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think the passion would be adding a custom plans in the back.
Can you remember the kitchen that we were looking at? We're asking about it. That's that. But we're talking about so much deeper.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
trying to think.
I see.
You told me nothing was side, is it?
If you go back to the real photograph.
I guess I'm just looking at.
So there's the door. You see the angle in that back door is. And so the window is like where this tragic room, the one is. That's where we're talking about modifying that wall.
And it's like they flipped this, if I'm looking at the right drives, the counter's gonna be on the right hand side. So like a step across, I would look at that whole thing.
what I'm trying to bring up is the picture, the photograph, and the window scale it's shown, it's rendering is very closely down to the floor level.
No, I get you what you're saying. Yeah, what I think is happening is that, again, I'm having trouble understanding this as well. Looks like there's no longer a counter on the back, right?
So
Counters are just-
I'm having, for some reason.
I can explain if you want. So there's two windows in the kitchen. And the one window is, if you see that back door on that same wall to the left, not in the picture, correct? And then the other window is above the range in this photo. This countertop location is staying. We're reconfiguring it slightly. And then we are adding a second cabinet run with countertops that go to the right of the fridge across the kitchen. So this countertop that you're looking at here is the same location as if you're looking at the floor plan, the counter on the right with the range shown. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I think I just have to stop looking at the plan. Like, the first floor plan to me that you have in here doesn't seem to match that.
So that's the previous.
Okay, that one is not labeled.
That-
Back pack.
This packet was from the previous hearing.
I have a question for staff. How creative can they get with that back window? As far as like growth patterning?
I think our recommendation would be, if they don't know the store configuration to be as simple as possible, or what would make sense for the age and the style of the home. Don't know if we have any older photos, if that's the original window location, so if we want to, make sure that the interior design does not cause changes to the exterior design. That's to be, based on evidence from photos or physical evidence where maybe something is shown in the wall. You can tell it was there, it was not before, or never was enclosed.
This is conceptual, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some lack of support, but maybe not full consensus for removing the window. There's other opportunities you can take to locate that, make it less transparent, some way, I guess. That's the purpose.
Well, I think that David did bring up a very good point to that, so I would probably wait on that.
So it sounds like there's not unanimous. What is the real general moving or not?
I think that David brought up sense just for to do that house healthy.
I mean, I too have a window in my shower, so I understand the issue. I also really love natural light, so that's your house, it's your prerogative. To an extent, I am not going to stand in your way because I turn.
That sounds like possible. Some of the concern is existing or how you're going to patch that siding. Certainly, I know in general, I can speak for our commission in general on this. Anytime that we can have opportunities to get rid of vinyl siding, like some other siding, we always like that better. Because it's, there's a technical term for it. I think it sucks. I think. So unfortunately, light on the United States and the world that we're slowly getting rid of. So anyway, the best you can do, I guess, to try to patch that, if you decide that it's not going to be the budget to change parts of that, we want that. The other issue, I think, was the back. So what kind of feedback, do you know feedback you can give on the back as far as the goes?
I think the comment from David was just that window to make sure that, I guess you're okay with that window is essentially down to your baseboard of your wall. And then you're planning to infill that full window or not would kind of make an impact on what the type of window, the trim and everything being used. If you were going to attempt to not infill the whole window. With glazing.
The feedback or information, you can answer the questions.
As far as matching the making sure that the vinyl looks cohesive would, it's not currently in the approval suggestion, but at some point, I would like to paint the house a different color. Obviously, I mean, I've reviewed some of the guidelines that must be matching the previous historical themes.
Yeah, I mean, the paint colors are flexible. I mean, I think the biggest problem you're gonna have is just lasting, ability to effective lasting paint.
Mhm. Okay.
Material.
Yes.
We understand. All right. Else?
Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. What are the next steps to move it from conceptual to approval?
Yeah.
So you would submit another application, and then in that area where you check conceptual, you would instead check for action, and just make sure that you have all the drawings and materials wrapped up and good to go for action review. I would recommend, getting them sooner rather than later, so that if you receive something, that could communicate and make sure that we have it fully complete, so that we can have it on the next agenda, if that's.
Okay, thank you.
Very much appreciated.
I think that's.
We have anything else to discuss?
Yes, we have some things under new business. But so it looks like there are, officer collections. And I think if this is the first time it's on the agenda, then, the recommendations that we discuss it, and then at the following meeting, the vote takes place. Especially now, so that everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah. Appreciate it. People.
So we're missing 2 applications.
You got 2 applications. Maybe not.
So,
Looks like it's definitely not showing up. So,
we're missing number 9, which was an action item for 1147th Street. And I want to say number 16 is the one which is a conceptual application. If there are any others that are missing.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So I'm happy to continue as chair, but if anybody else is interested, certainly try to monopolize it for the rest of the district. So
I'd like you to chair it.
volunteers. So, sounds like, I don't even know what record is, but.
It's actually been used.
Yeah, it's a should. So let's decide should is a recommendation. That sounds good. Well, we have had a vice chair in the past. And we're going to take that over the meeting. So
We should not have a vice chair recently.
we did until just the last 2 meetings. So tonight's last meeting was the commission.
Yeah, so it's definitely something.
I know Shannon had some interest in it. I don't know if anyone else has interest in that. And I don't know, we had a secretary in the past. I feel like we did that. We had to take notes during the dark days. Actually, treasurer. Oh, we did have a treasurer.
$600, and we allocated it to buy books on good signage design or good window display, and we gave us available to applicants. Way back.
Yeah, it's
It is a library that. Oh, and then we went to conferences.
yeah, like local conferences and stuff.
But I think that's gone away. So the treasurer,
Yeah.
since I did that.
Yeah, I don't believe any of our smart review conditions have a treasurer anymore. And then for the secretary, staff at this point, pretty small meetings, so not so much of a need. We do have one more thing. It's not on the printed agenda, but I was just emailed by Commissioner Goodman, I believe, earlier today. You just wanted to, thought it'd be good to bring up that he read some news articles about city council possibly moving on some new provisions to city code in relation to short-term rentals such as Airbnb. But just, you know, on the radar, they may expand the city's ability to investigate when complaints are made and seek to provide more grounds for short-term rental license removal and denial. So I don't think it's been official yet, but just something to be.
This is just from the newspaper. It's special.
Yeah, I think that's where Commissioner too.
Oh, yeah, that one, but I was gonna say, if something else, if we saw there, implementing that, task force, the recycle random. So hopefully it'll help. Yeah, the task force has been, I'm saying they're actually started to make arrests and whatnot. So hopefully that'll help. I don't know if maybe it's interested for the show. Last couple of weeks. Yep. Seems less to me. Seems less. But it seems at least less intense. So, like flying outside of traffic. Just yeah, so they're shooting. Well, it looks like we're not gonna have those last two applicants.
What would we say else to the Shannon? That was the question.
I mean, I think we can. You're suggesting that we do these elections next meeting.
Yeah, unless you feel like the other members should be, you know, party to a discussion first off. It was just the recommendation that we always bring it up for discussion at one meeting and then wait until the following meeting is actually vote.
What happens if we nominate somebody abstention? Senior's not here. Is that probably not a good idea? If they need to say it's okay.
I mean, I think they would eventually need to accept.
He's not comfortable with putting her name up for this, and she eagerly, you can step out as Phil in.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, we could send them a follow-up email, so everyone's. It just never gets on, everyone's right now. It's not, you know. Yeah. We'll just keep it.
Posted by the slate, as they said. Okay. They already got like that.
So you want to circle back to number 9 on the agenda, possibly for a motion to continue if the commission doesn't feel comfortable in what we're doing at this time, or if there's discussion and they could improve the access of the applicant.
Yeah, I think let's decide that. One thing I would want to mention, we haven't had this happen in a while, but I think we need to table to the next meeting, because if it happens 3 times in a row, this is what we used to do, that always gets moved off. So, does anybody want to discuss anything on number 9, or are we ready to just move into?
And then I could read off, you know, the application description again, if that would help. Okay. So, number 9 on the agenda, I get put here. Okay, so this is for application I-21-08-014. So just for some background, this is for 1147th Street. The application is to result in a code violation for work already completed. And the work was to replace wood window frames, replace the fence to match existing, to construct a 2-car parking pad constructed out of concrete for the same documentation, and to paint the house demonstrating in color. So the commissioners at the business meeting requested scale and measure drawings for the parking site plan for the window trim. As the commission wanted to confirm that the replaced window trim matched the original trim dimensions. The applicant has submitted drawings for the parking pad and window trim. And then generally, just so you're aware, staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the new window trim matches the exact dimensions of the original trim. And that's based on the standards for alteration numbers 2, 5, 6.
What about on the parking pad issue? Step out position on that.
Yeah, so that is the one that has the public comment, and it's specifically regarding the parking pad. So if we want to wait on that for the applicant's response, then this might be a good one to continue to allow the applicant to be able to attend the next meeting.
This is time back.
Again, we haven't had what it's just done it without procedure, so it's usually good for them.
Okay, so should we make a motion?
And the house is already painted, isn't it?
Yes, this is all work completed from my understanding.
Have we approved parking pads with, on alleys with that type of tree release? I feel like we have.
I feel like, yeah, with some conditions based on their. So I think
Or requesting that they do for those pervious materials, so that it's not all the drainage.
That is much taken care of the applicants.
Back to help you tonight, we just approved. Standard, so it's based on the fact that there was one there originally, since the terrible condition. It's the one with the big everything. We said that one we could not do ready because we were. So the company so that with the condition, with the that we wouldn't have said that it's concrete.
My concern is not necessarily about concrete, even though that is a concern, it's more about pads that we've put on alleys that also have extremely tight turning radiuses. Can't think of the one in particular, but it almost didn't look like it was originally an alley.
Which apparently is
Maybe
the fattest of the neighbor.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about that. Like, not saying I'm advocating for this, just trying to put that as an advocate.
Yeah, does seem like there's probably being in the area a lot of other locations. Someone probably there only so the zoning was.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think there's a lot of ad hoc, sure. And it's some of it. Yeah, this is a hot block conversations we just had earlier.
Do you feel obligated to some correspondence with sections and so? Should they be invited to come and speak?
Yeah, so they are aware that they are, able to come and be a speaker. They have like those, the options of either submitting, a written letter or coming in person and the directions of how to do that as well. So they are aware of that. And I can let them know the application has been continued. So if they want the opportunity to speak, the commission, so open to.
We would be very eager to hear speak if they would love to.
Absolutely.
Just count a little bit.
Yeah, and I let them know that their letter was submitted out to the commission as well. They have an opportunity, but I can let them know that the application has been continued, so if they would like to come in, the commissioners.
Okay, that's all that. Can I have a motion to table that to the next regularly scheduled meeting? So, yeah, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions. Okay, so it's tabled, and then I guess we don't take any action, right? Because it's conceptual.
So we could take a motion.
I think so. I mean, it said it out before 6, and at 6:30, I feel like that's adequate amount of time.
It is. Is there any additional comments from the business meeting you think you would have in regard to that conceptual application? I'm gonna double check that much has changed.
All concerned about this, how the fine school is.
Yeah.
I'm confused by the.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 inches now, it shows.
Sorry,
The pipe in the ground, it's like it's 9 inches.
was it higher originally?
Uh,
For some reason before I thought it was way.
Yeah, and one thing I did know is that on either side of those fence areas, is alleys. So it's not like you're looking into a neighbor's yard, which can benefit that, I think.
Yeah, it's a weird spot, isn't it, between the two.
That's the building.
Okay, anything else, anyone? Motion adjourned.
You do.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
I.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
We're good. Oh, we're off. Yeah.
It's good. It's